Hello everyone, this video is about the Hermes drama, yeah! They are again very expensive paints for Hermes. These are my prices with my local tax, and if you ask me, $38.56 for 4 paints is pretty steep. You can buy good games for that money. I understand CRT needs money to continue creating the best damn space game ever, but Chris spends most of the money on his interactive movie Squadron 42, his Manchester building, his private cinema and expensive art. And of course on reworks of reworks of reworks of reworks, because having a plan, thinking things through, is for other people but not for Chris. I would be surprised if the PU even received 10% of the more than $1 billion in funding CRT has received so far. And now it turns out you cannot use Hermes paints on Apollo and vice versa. Apollo and Hermes have the same hull, there's only one small difference. Apollo has a small window in the center section top, while Hermes has structural elements there. And the best thing is, those Hermes paints don't even cover this section. This section is kept clear. Yay! It would be trivial to have paints that work on Apollo and on Hermes. We have paints that work on variants even if they have a very different shape, for example Saber and Saber Raven. Here's a Reddit thread from the White Knight, R-Star Citizen. Retro XX1678 wrote, "It's funny that the Saber paints can be used on all variants, although the hulls are vastly different, but the Hermes can't use the Apollo skins, and vice versa. Same with Wolves. All paints work on both variants." Erexis says also the Constellation series, Andromeda, Phoenix, Taurus, Aquila, all have distinct features that makes their hull a little bit different, yet all paints can be applied to all of them. Tarakova, same goes for Saber and its many drastically different hull variations. Difference is, it wasn't until Meteor that someone in marketing realized they could make more money that way. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and again, what I find so unbelievable, this section doesn't even receive paint. There's a glass window on the Apollo and some kind of structure on Hermes. Yeah, are you serious, Chris? But still, we cannot use Apollo paints on Hermes and Hermes paints on Apollo. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
It actually happens inside the shader. It's pretty cool. There's a sort of pretty efficient way of storing the data so it's not massive amounts of texture memory. Sign distance fields if anyone's interested. But it's pretty cool. So yeah, so for what will be happening going forward is now we'll be able to roll out different sort of, first of all the skins that we've already promised, but probably some new ones, and at some point we'll allow tools for people to be able to sort of do their own paint job.
So essentially the process kind of begins with we want to get these pre-configured schemes done. So you could, for example, go off and go, oh, you know what, I want a NASA themed kind of skin, or I want a District 9 themed skin, or I want a pink Hello Kitty themed skin. And then essentially we as artists create basically the material files. They're tiny in memory. They're so small that we can have hundreds of them if we want to, because they're all calling the same textures. That's what's done under the hood, okay? Once those material files are created and obviously named accordingly and sanity checked that the emblem is called emblem and the submaterial ID is called submaterial ID 1, 2 and 3, they have to be the same names. That's then handed to tech design to then kind of set that up with the loadout that they're putting together for that shit. Further forward, we want these kind of paint configurations to become hex codes. So if you're in like a guild of 20 players, and the clan leader said, all right, this is our paint scheme, there's going to be no guessing work. You get the hex code, you put it in there, and it automatically will say, oh, you know what, we've got matte black against yellow against pink, something crazy, and at every ship in your fleet you can put that hex code on and it will automatically go into that color configuration. So there's a lot of kind of cool things, and as artists we do this stuff all day every day, and we were just like, why wouldn't we give the end user this functionality? So that's the overall plan. There is a lot of There is a lot of kind of very things you have to be careful with when you're authoring the shaders for this stuff, so it can accommodate these options, but we're on top of that, and that's kind of, yeah, it's good. That's what we're doing on the initial kind of burst of ships right now. I think it's really cool, and it's really amazing to see, like, today I just kind of caught up with the guys and looked at what we're working on for that stuff, and there's like a fleet of 50 ships, all with different skins, all with different loadouts, and it injects color into the game. You can have your kind of personal things going on, which is kind of cool. If I was going to pick one to fly and customize myself, I've always got a sweet spot for the Avenger. If it was me I'd probably go for a dirty chrome kind of finish. The shape is just kind of so kind of primitive. To get some kind of highly reflective material on it, I think would just look super cool in space. So that's what I would go for.
Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.